Welcome back to the Overplayed podcast, the home of sports and sports gaming in your ear every single Thursday. My name is GoodGameBro, one half of this podcast. The other half is my esteemed co-host Miles. Mills. Mills, how are you?
I mean, you find out one thing about Forza Horizon and me playing it, and you just latch onto it. For those who don't know the inside joke, I play Forza Horizon. I've been playing Forza Horizon 5 on the stream, and there is no Mills option for names. So the stream said, no, use Miles. So we even have the license plates as Miles now.
I honestly, you this at any point that you tell me something that's slightly annoying for you, I'm going to absolutely sit on it and abuse it until I literally get tired of it myself, and I'll jump.
See, here's the thing. I was under the impression that, friends can talk to other friends about things and not weaponize every single thing.
It's anything that I can get ammunition on you, I'm using it. You better believe that.
Hey, did you see? I've spruced the place up a little bit. Took a little inspiration from you. Decided to go a little. For those of you watching the video on YouTube.
I mean, of course you're inspired by me. Next week, you're going to have a muffin, okay? Next week, you're going to have a little muffin. I can already see it.
Can I tell you this? If you're listening to this podcast on the audio, I urge you to go over to the YouTube page, to the Rare Drop YouTube page, and watch how many times this man stuffs his face with food during this podcast.
Am I not a human?
Like a human? You can't go 1 hour without possibly putting something in your mouth when you're in an audio form?
I like to eat. I have a mute button for a reason. Hey, and by the way, speaking of going over to the YouTube page and watching something, maybe there's something in the works, Mills, that people might be interested in seeing live. You got more info on that.
What are you talking about?
The thing.
What thing?
That we're doing next year.
I don't know what that is. Sorry.
Well, one of us is always
you have information on something I don't have?
No, what we're doing for the show next year.
What show? This show? What are we doing for this show? I'm sorry. Did I miss something? Is there? Were you waiting for me to say something?
We're doing a live show starting next year.
January 5th. Show. I'm recording stuff. I'm not doing any live show. I don't get paid. I'm not. It's on my pay grade. You get the big bucks.
We're looking for a new co-host here on the Overplayed podcast because Mills is overplayed. I'm tired of him. I'm done.
Real quick, starting. I know we've been teasing going live here for a couple of weeks, technical issues and just trying to get everything set up. This will be the last show of this year. Rare Drop is off. The entirety of Rare Drop is off for the next 2 weeks for the holidays. So best to you and yours for the holidays. When we come back, what we've been teasing for a few weeks now, we will be live starting January 4th. It is 4th, right?
5th.
It's a 5th. That's what I said. The 5th. Starting January 5th at 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. I was blindsided by this chat. I was told live about 2 minutes ago, 2 minutes before we went live. I've never known anything. No, seriously. So January 5th, starting at 8 p.m. on twitch.tv/Mills and on facebook.gg/GoodGameBro. We'll be doing Overplayed live. So it'll be the podcast recording. So if you listen to the podcast, keep listening. But we'll also be doing it live so you guys can interact with us during the podcast, ask questions if you want to. If you just want to sit there and listen to it live, that's cool too. Either one of our channels, you'll be getting the same thing either side. So check us out again. Facebook.gg/GoodGameBro, Twitch.tv/Mills, 8 p.m. any Wednesday that Good Game Bro decides to show up for the show. Every 8 p.m. every Wednesday live. And then you can still hear the recorded podcast the next day at normally 2 to 3 p.m. on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. You can find us still the same way you always have there.
Yep. And to Mill's point, we'll have all this information out on social media. I'm sure both of our accounts probably retweet this stuff as it goes live. And then you also, if you want to follow our podcast show's Twitter handle, it's OVRPLYD pod on Twitter. That's Overplayed with only one vowel for Overplay. I know it's a lot to think about, big brain stuff here, but we'll obviously have that information there. And from our pages, again, we'll be going live. So super easy. We'll have it all out on social. But Mills, I'm hitting you with a segue. Speaking of a movement on social, there's something brewing in the MLB The Show community right now.
So a couple of years ago, we had the Fix Madden franchise movement where a lot of creators and community got together to make a social movement for franchise mode upgrades in Madden, and it worked. We've talked about this numerous times. Sean Grady coming out and saying, hey, look, this is what we want to do with franchise. This is the roadmap. pretty much saying you guys made this happen. And now franchise is I think you and I have been assured of this, contrary to some, other sources. That franchise is a strong part of their directive now. It is something that they are looking forward to and they are committed to. 2K has always had a commitment to franchise. One of the things that even this year, when what was supposed to be a light year with them doing next gen and last gen, still we got my staff improvements for next gen 2K for the My NBA, which legitimately did have a very large effect on how you play My NBA. It's a great upgrade to an already great mode. NHL, which we'll talk about here in a second, has constant franchise upgrades. Whereas MLB The Show hasn't. MLB The Show has been pretty stagnant over the last few years. And it has not been a lack of effort on the community's point. But now they're getting to the point where the community is getting angry. The lack of communication, and when I say the lack of accurate communication as well, because if you remember correctly, the pre-hype videos for MLB The Show 21, one of their Twitch streams, they had one of their franchise developers come on and was like, yeah, we updated the trade AI, we added depth charts, and neither feature worked. Trade AI has been proven time and time again all over. We had Paul Sporer. I mean, I'm not even going to call out specific names. You've seen all of the bad trades that have been posted on social media, over at Operation Sports, on streams, on YouTube. There are YouTubes dedicated to just how bad the trade AI is right now. And the thing is, we've gotten no communication back on that. They said we worked with the trade AI. We did hundreds of 30+ year sims, and we were really happy with what we saw. There's zero. I'm not going to say they were lying. I truly believe they did work to it, but there's no way they did that accurately. Then they said we added depth charts. I don't know if you've messed with the depth chart feature in MLB The Show. It shows you for the next 5 years what your projected depth chart is. It is quite normally always wrong. It puts players out of position. It takes logic kind of out of what it is. The contracts are messed up. By the way, one of the big problems is they update the base rosters for Diamond Dynasty, which throws the contracts out of whack, which throws their AI out of whack. Their AI doesn't understand what value is on a contract. So the biggest problem is there have been no significant upgrades to franchise mode since, I guess, the introduction of March to October.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a thing that every year, it sucks that, when you and I talk, a trailer drops for any sports game, right? And then there's always that like real talk between you and I where we're like, all right, they said this, what do you actually think is going to happen, right? We even did it on the show over this past year. We talked a lot about when MLB The Show put out that trailer, we're like, okay, what do you actually think is going to happen? Do you think this is going to be in there X, Y, Z? And I think a lot of the unfortunate things that we thought would happen ultimately did happen, about either features being lackluster or broken or non-existent. We were surprised by Stadium Creator, but really outside of that, there wasn't a lot that really, floored us. And I think, you play franchise mode, you can pretty much get any of those top players by trading for a relief player. The AI has just been abysmal. And it's, again, we talk about franchise modes and stories and creating all that stuff. It is hard to stay engaged in a mode that is so poorly hodgepodge and vastly just needs an upgrade at this point to really, give it something more than a fresh coat of paint.
And don't get me wrong, Stadium Creator is a great addition, but Stadium Creator is not a franchise edition. Stadium Creator is an addition for the game. When they made the idea of customizing your league, that's great, but like that is such and I'm not downplaying how much time it may have taken to put into this game. It is such a base level thing to be able to change modes out like that, to change teams out. That doesn't change anything about the mode. That changes the setup of the mode. Sure, you can do complete fantasy modes, fantasy franchises, which people have done. Like people are doing like the 97. They're doing fictional rosters with fictional teams. Shout out to Bacon for that roster, which is fantastic. Again, which will bring me back into the rosters in a second. But so what we've done is we've taken a social. Hashtag make franchise better MLB 22. I'm sure if you're on any one of their socials and follow them, and anytime you see an official MLB The Show post, you're probably seeing it under most of them. I've been respectful when they bring like, Roflo into a post or Paul Sporer, or like they're doing their competitive stuff. I'm trying to be respectful there too. But most of the people just we're putting the hashtag in there, putting what we want. And Sony seems to be, well, I'm telling you, Sony's not ignoring it, but they are being all silent on the Western front, as it would be. Some of the things that we'd love to see. I mean, international free agent pool would be great. Their scouting lacks. Let's be fair. Their scouting does nothing. Their scouting is, hey, this number's here. Hey, this number's here. It literally does what Comcast does to their employees. Everybody's a number. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Everybody's a number, okay? That's what it is for this franchise mode. Is everybody's a number instead of what Madden is trying. Even Madden's trying to do it. Like, they do stories about these players. Like, they give traits now. Like, they try to give you a vibe of who the person is. 2K is huge on this. 2K is huge on giving, what's their ceiling and their floor? What are their NBA comps? What do they do well? There's a boom or bust percentage in 2K, which is so fantastic because you could have the best prospect ever, and there's a chance of them busting, and there's a chance of them busting. Now, there's a chance for that in MLB, but I mean, who knows, right? So we'll start there. We'll move on. There are still no rotating interleague schedules. You play the same interleague schedule every single year. Since interleague was introduced, you do the same thing. Their base rosters are the single biggest problem with computer AI in this game. The problem is that, and I'm going to try to do this quickly. I apologize. This is going to be kind of an explanation. They have MLB, AAA, AA, and like a little bit of single A, right? The problem is that when you draft people in real life, they go through multiple A-level teams. They go to AA. It takes them a while. When you draft people at MLB The Show, you do this in 7 rounds as opposed to 40 plus, and these people quickly come through the minors. They don't take time in the minors, so they quickly come through the minors, and yes, it's a video game, so you kind of want to have a little bit of impact, but then 3 years in, everybody's 80 plus. Every one of the teams are 80 plus. They look like Diamond Dynasty leagues, and there are just so many base problems with the mode right now. And what we were told was, hey, March to October is the new wave. That's what we're going to do. March to October is going to be and it looked great because remember, we got stories and we got cool little cutscenes and hey, look, this is happening to your team and you have an effect on it without having to play 162 games. And then March to October just stopped getting updated. Like, it's still not multi-year. It's still this base experience with it feels the same every year. It's still tied to Diamond Dynasty, which means it is very restrictive on what you can do in it. They need to take this franchise, and you know what? I'm gonna bring the one thing up that I don't care about, but I know a lot of people do. A few years ago, they ripped online franchise out of this league or out of this game, and they stated it was because of the servers. They were rebuilding their servers, and that online franchise would be back when the servers were more stable. Servers still aren't stable. Let's first of all start with that. Second of all, they brought custom leagues back, which is cool. But again, it's a Diamond Dynasty feature that they're passing off as a franchise feature because you can do it which is cool. Hey, have Diamond Dynasty rosters. I'm cool with that. But don't forget your core. Stop forgetting your core. And and I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but this is what we've been dealing with for years. And we've been giving feedback to pretty much a brick wall.
Yeah, and I think if you're hearing Mill's pain and frustration, this is not as a product of a year thing or a couple of years thing. This is ongoing, right? This has been a major problem, and I think it's not just a problem that MLB The Show, Sony San Diego Studios is having, but they are, I think, one of the last ones to really get around to really putting efforts into their non-revenue generating modes like franchise mode, and really giving it the TLC that it needs. So what we can tell you is that for, if you see those posts that are more MLB The Show centric and not something that is targeting, content creators doing tournaments, because we don't want to take away from, the light that they're obviously, getting at that point. But if it's something that's more so about general MLB The Show posts, on social media, what Mills you want to give them the hashtag they can essentially use to make sure that they're, doing the best to keep towards that ultimate movement?
Again, one more time, hashtag make franchise better MLB 22. I know it's a little longer. The first person I saw use it was Shelfie. Respect to him because he's more of a Diamond Dynasty guy than anything else. And we have a lot of Diamond Dynasty people on board with this. I want to make sure that it's very clear. When you use it, if you just want to reply and use the hashtag, go for it. If you want to reply and give your ideas on how you want the mode to be better, go for it. This is not a movement that I want to make Diamond Dynasty worse, or I want Diamond Dynasty to be ignored. I play Diamond Dynasty. I enjoy Diamond Dynasty. You can do both. And the excuses that you've gotten for years that this is a small team of developers, or this is as small as an indie studio, and I'm quoting with my fingers for effect that you can't hear on an audio podcast, whatever. I want you to understand that that's not true. They just had an absolute banner year coming on Xbox. They were one of the top selling PlayStation games for years. I also want you to understand that the pandemic is a valid excuse for not being able to have some time. This is not a 1-year problem. They've had this problem for a number of years. And one of the biggest problems is they don't have direction. You can tell the way they're doing the mode. They're shooting one way and they're going, this isn't working. You know what? It was like Madden before this past year. Madden did the exact same thing. You remember this? Hey, let's do this feature. Oh, this isn't working. Let's go this way instead. Oh, this isn't working. Let's go 180 from that. We'll get something on there that everyone will like. And instead of having, a 3 to 5 year plan of, hey, look, this is our vision. We know we can't get there now. It's like, it's the Orioles, man. It's the Orioles. We're going to rebuild. We know. No, I'll make it the Astros. I'm going to make it the Astros because I want a happy ending, kind of. The Astros completely tore it to the ground and rebuilt, right? Completely tore it to the ground and rebuilt. Hey, if they need to cheat to make a franchise game, I don't care. Bang on the can. Let's go for it. They completely tore it down to the ground and they rebuilt with a vision for the future. They traded away all of their top stars and they understand that. That's what SDS has to do. I'm sorry to say that. It's time to tear the mode down to its base level and start again. And if they came out and said, hey, look, this is what we have to do, I'm willing to bet most of the franchise community would be like, you know what? Okay, that's fine. If you need to tear this thing down, that's fine. As long as we say, look, 3 years from now, we're going to have this fully built mode. But you have to do something and you have to communicate it. I'm done with this. They have the MLB The Show tips page, which is like their version of Madden NFL Direct for, their hardcores. That page is completely gone. Like they just are, it's still there, but no one's on it anymore. There is zero communication from this company on anything that isn't Diamond Dynasty. Like any road to the show, no communication. Franchise, no communication. Online ranked, dude. Online ranked is just like, hey, they still play that? What? It's just they've ignored franchise mode for too long. They've ignored road to the show. And made it worse, actually, by connecting it to online. They've ignored online franchise as a whole. They've forgotten about who helped them build this game before Diamond Dynasty came out. And it's time that they stand up and say, you know what? Sean Grady reminder here. You know what? We screwed up. We understand we screwed up. We man up. We woman up. We person up, whatever you want to call it. We want to stand up and say, hey, look, we screwed up, but we're committed now. This is what we're going to do, and roadmap us. Don't roadmap us with dates. Don't tell us everything's going to be by 22 or 23 or 24. Be like, hey, this is our vision. This is where we want to go.
Yep. And I think, the analogy that I'll close that out with is sort of, the dance that everyone's been hyped up for is an improved franchise mode. It's the best baseball game we could possibly have, right? To your point earlier, we want, Diamond Dynasty to be great. We want all the modes to sort of have depth and power and people to be able to play them based off whatever their own personal interests are. For Sony San Diego Studios, sort of paraphrase, like, don't get to the dance and forget who your date was, Mm-hmm. Don't forget who your date was when you get to the dance. And that dance now is that, they've been obviously killing it from sales and they definitely forgot who their date was. But there is a franchise, from EA that actually didn't forget who their date was. They had a really cool feature on the NHL side.
I want to go one more step further. I know you just gave me the perfect damn segue, but you know me, I got to break your segue up here. I want to be very, very clear. Madden screwed around and found out because the NFL is now contracting 2K to make a game, to make an arcade game, but whatever it is, they contacted 2K and said, "Hey, look, let's do something." The MLB is not as committed to one company as the NFL was. Let SDS keep screwing around and find out what happens when Super Mega Baseball is still under the EA banner. Let EA give EA even an inkling into an open door. And EA's has their own problems. Don't get me wrong. Hell, give 2K an inkling of an idea that there's money to be made. And see what happens when the two big boys come back in and start stomping your ass. Be very, very careful. You went through an entire decade where you had to fight a claim off with a stick. You had to fight MVP baseball off with a stick. You had to fight World Series baseball off with a stick when they were giving out $1 million for throwing perfect games.
Yep.
You're giving out $50,000 for some random tournament on the weekend. Do not leave this door open for another company because they will come roaring through it and set your asses back to the early 2000s MLBs. You want to try those? M.Frisk on YouTube did. That's not what you want. Yep. Stand up, put your foot down early.
Or get stepped on.
Kind of like what NHL's doing. NHL has said, you know what? We've screwed around and found out for too long. So what they did last week on December 9th, roster sharing was brought into the game. It has breathed new life back into franchise mode for a ton of people because their franchise mode is already extremely customizable. You could add teams to it. You could change rosters, jerseys, expansion, double expansion. You could do all kinds of cool stuff. Then they let people like Tugi put their rosters up, which are they know. Listen, EA NHL team knows they lag behind with roster updates. It's a million people doing this. The NHL's different because they have to get individual signatures every time somebody's added to the game, whether they're international, AHL, NHL, all those guys. They have to get physical signatures from going into there. That's a thing. That's a thing. They have to get actual signatures from every one of those people when they're in the NHL. That's why the first roster update normally waits until a week or two after the league is started because they have to play a game in the NHL and then get signed for the rookies. So, roster sharing has not only done that, but there are 1997 rosters up now. There are 2007 rosters. There are people that have been working on rosters since it was launched, since the game launched, that now have the opportunity to share that around the community. And with NHL's already verbose franchise mode, fog of war, scouting, there are let me explain something to you. You know, there are 13 different scouts in NHL franchise mode. There's a group of pro scouts and a group of amateur scouts. You can automate them all you want, or you could just manually tinker with everyone. Worldwide, AHL, QHL, NHL, pro scouts. You can scout team strategies coming in on your schedule. You can do like a 2-week scout on teams that are 2 weeks out on your schedule. You can send guys to go look at rookies for the draft. You can send guys for trade. And every single person on that roster has fog of war that you do not see their ratings until that scout sees them. And then you know what happens after that? That rating doesn't change until another scout comes back out and sees them again. So if they've upgraded through the year, if you haven't seen a player in 3 months, they change. So it's incredibly important if you want to get your strategies together for every game to make sure that you have a pro scout constantly going, 2 to 3 weeks ahead, like they do in real life.
Yep.
Like they do in real life. You can get strategy tips out of that. You can get roster tips out of that. You can get trading tips out of that. Just unbelievable work they do on that franchise mode. And the gameplay, from what I've heard with some of the tuners recently, the gameplay is chef's kiss right now, is what I've heard. I've heard it is that good. So, listen, NHL, I'm almost going to put it here. NHL and 2K, they're the standard bearers right now. Those are the two that sit up on top of the mountain in terms of franchise mode. If you're a franchise player, listen, I don't know, not everyone's a hockey fan, not everyone's a basketball fan. You owe it to yourself. If you got EA Play to try out NHL's franchise mode just to see what it's like to have a good franchise mode. And then NBA, same way. If you can find it cheap somewhere, you're not a huge basketball fan, dude, my staff alone, like a shot guru. I hired a shot guru last night. You know what he does? Mid-range shots. Literally, he's the Ben Simmons guy. He's the guy that needs to talk to Ben Simmons. That's what it is. The Ben Simmons hate comes back. You knew it was coming.
You found some way to shoehorn a Ben Simmons dig in here, which is
into an NHL roster sharing.
I'm literally not surprised. But again, I think it goes back like NHL is a fantastic franchise mode. NBA 2K is a fantastic franchise mode. And a lot of that is built around customization because they're letting people tinker and play as, as in depth as they want to, or as sort of casual topical as they want to. And I think ultimately that is a massive thing that helps out so many people. And, some other studios could learn from that. Maybe that we've mentioned before
in the last half hour. All right, so let's move on here. I do want to talk about, because I've been heavy into the My Team this year. I've been into the Ultimate Team this year for Madden. I do want to give credit where credit's due. Diamond Dynasty still, I think, is the number one Ultimate Team, but we're at a point in Diamond Dynasty where the content is few and far between, and I think that's a deficit to Sony. To be in December and not really having a real true content schedule anymore. They don't do any new packs anymore. A lot of their events you have to get 25 wins and people are already moving on to something else for that. The 10th inning is one boss, not three. And there's there's only so much you can do, I guess, with baseball in December. On the other hand, we have Madden with Zero Chill right now. We have My Team with getting ready to do Hoopsmas in a couple of days. I just want to give credit here because I know I talk a lot about franchise and my love for franchise, but two modes that have very, very much upgraded themselves this year are Madden Ultimate Team and NBA 2K My Team. They just released another domination. This is the fourth domination they've released for My Team. And if you don't know what that is, it's custom curated teams in a single player 5v5 aspect that you have to beat to get rewards. This one gives a pink diamond Manu Ginobili. It's called the Homecoming, and the theme of this is players coming home. So like the first game that I played was against Anthony Davis and like a makeshift Pelicans roster. So it's kind of cool, and like I said, it's custom curated. They added a mode called Clutch Time a couple of weeks ago that I've even started to have fun with. They have a ton of different modes. I still don't know why they don't have a draft mode. Well, they don't have a salary cap mode. They have a draft mode that's constantly updated, but I'd really like to see a salary cap mode at some point, which is, I guess, limited on the weekends. I think My Team is doing a very good job. Obviously, they've had some questions in the past about price of packs, and contracts are still in the game, which blows my mind, especially when you can only have 20 of each contract at any time. Madden still has way too many currencies at time. Right now, they got snowflakes in there, which is only one currency, thankfully. But over Harvest, they had like Blitz Bits, Blitz Tickets, Blitz. I don't even know. There's like 6 currencies at once. All that being said, they dropped Zero Chill, and there's like 30 individual solos for the intro. There's like another 30 to do other stuff. Solo battles are still updated. Like, I'm talking, if you're an offline player, both of these modes are doing very, very good Christmas updates right now. If you get the game for Christmas for some reason, want to jump in, both modes are very easy to get a good team for not that much cost. If any cost, I think they're both very no money spent friendly right now as well. I just, again, wanted to give credit. I knew I was going to bitch about franchise mode, so I also want to give credit to the other side of this, where all 3 modes, even Diamond Dynasty before this like last 2 weeks, has been very, very good. And I urge you to at least try some of this stuff out for, if for anything, to compare just where they are compared to some of the other franchise modes.
Yeah, and I think hats off to the live service people that are working across, the different companies, different organizations that are putting out content for those games. I think, franchise mode obviously is something that's within your own wheelhouse of telling a story when you have a really good franchise mode. But when you're looking at, My Team, Ultimate Team, Diamond Dynasty, all those different modes, there is a story to be told, but it also is sort of reliant on really good live service content. And it has to be, things that are intriguing to you from a thematic standpoint, but also intriguing to you because the cards are actually good, right? Like Madden has been under fire for, at different times for like +1 cards, or essentially just plussing up an attribute on particular card that upgrades, but I think they've learned and they've gotten better. But it's about having like really good content. And when you think about how much content we're getting in some of these modes and how difficult it probably is to think through weeks in advance of like, okay, what card can we potentially have here? How can we make it intriguing to people? And then just balancing that across an entire calendar year for games that do that. It's a very difficult thing, and having some insight from that in my own, work history, it's tough. And I think those people, deserve a round of applause. So if nothing else, check those out just to show them some love. But also to Mill's point, like seeing the amount of support that those modes are getting versus some of the others in certain titles is definitely interesting too.
Yeah. And again, I want everyone to remember here that we're going to get it. They did Zero Chill for Madden like before the holidays, and that's pretty much everything we're getting. I want everyone to understand that when they hit the go live button, even any one of these live services, every time they hit the go live button, that team is not working like remotely. Like they're live in the studio, making sure everything goes over. So when you're on Christmas Day and you're sitting there playing Madden or playing 2K and you're seeing like new stuff pop in as it goes, I want you to understand that there are people in the studio pushing buttons to make sure that goes live and everything runs smooth. So if something doesn't go completely smooth, do yourself a favor, and this is for any game, live service MMO games. I know Star Wars: The Old Republic. Professor Broman's been playing through it. I love watching him play through it the first time. But again, any kind of live service updates to any kind of game, it's the holidays, guys. Be a little easy. Understand that there are people behind those social media accounts. And show a little love.
Amen. Now, I think Mills, I don't know about you, but this past weekend kind of shocked me. I love UFC, I love MMA, but I didn't watch the fight this week between Nunes and Pena because I assumed Nunes is just going to work her in the first-ish round, and I'm like, I'll watch the highlights. And then I was completely shocked when Pena gets a second round finish against her. Did you at all watch any of the fights this past weekend from UFC?
I did watch the fights actually, and I will give credit to Moss Fan who listens to the podcast. He said to me, I think it was the Thursday before the fights, he goes, Nunes is overrated, Pena's gonna put her out. And I was like, no way. I was like, come on, there's no way. He goes, listen to me. Nunes can fight, but people are acting like she's the end all be all of the women's division, and she's not. And Pena has her number. Pena's ready. And I said, okay, all right, whatever you want. We didn't put any money on it, thank God. So Pena looked dominant at times.
Dude, the jab I think was the key though. Can we? Obviously, we're boxing fans, but when Mike Tyson was his most dominant as a boxer and a puncher, Mike Tyson was using the jab. The jab led into the hooks, the uppercuts, all the vicious things that we know Mike Tyson for, and the crazy highlights. Pena's jab, a thing of beauty, and it really kept Nunes at bay. I feel like,
and I will say this: it's funny because if you're a striker, which Pena can be, like the jab is the important thing. Like the leg kick, you're either going to jab or you're going to leg kick. Okay, one of those. You have to keep your opponent at distance, and she did a really good job of that. Listen, Nunes was very quick after the fight to be like, yes, I'm accepting the rematch. Like Nunes is going to get a rematch against this. This is a big money for Dana. I'm not 100% sure that Nunes came into this fight. And we talk about this with a lot of the, we talk about this with a lot of top fighters. Like a lot of top fighters start getting this hype up. Nunes was known. Like people were calling her the best pound for pound fighter in the UFC, not female fighter in the UFC. Some say the best pound for pound fighter in the world. When you start getting that, if you listen to that in any way, it is just it's human nature to start taking that in and going, you know what, maybe I am. And this could be the wake up call that Nunes needs to be like, listen, I need to get back to where I was. And I'm not even saying she was down a step, like, but that's the only explanation I can give. She looked different in this fight than any other fight I've ever seen her fight in. And Pena came in ready to tap her out, ready to put her down. So I do like that Pena did the old the after the post fight yell that I can't repeat on this channel. It was the homage to, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a UFC fan, you know the homage she did with her daughter on her shoulder. Yeah. I'm excited. What this has done is it's made me excited to see Nunez Pena too.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I will say this as well. I was completely surprised at Poirier. I had no idea. I thought Poirier was gonna over and away win that fight.
Really?
I did. I thought his hands were too good.
I think Oliveira is just I think Oliveira is just great all around, man. That's what gave me the sense of like, if I didn't put anything on that because I'm not a betting man, but I would have bet on Oliveira for sure.
See, I would have bet. I didn't bet on that purposely because, like, I mean, I didn't know as much about Oliveira as I probably should have at that point.
You see the Chandler fight though? The Chandler fight's really what sold me of like, yo, this dude will scrap.
Yeah. Can we talk one more thing? Can we talk about Sean O'Malley for a second? So the story about Sean O'Malley is that they were slow playing him. Dana said this publicly, by the way. Dana White said this publicly, that they were slow playing Sean O'Malley because they've rushed so many fighters before that he sees something in Sean O'Malley that he wants to like cultivate. Sure. Right? And then Sean O'Malley goes out, whips ass. Cody Garbrandt, who gets in Sean O'Malley's face at the press conference, gets his lights out. And then O'Malley's just like, well, who's next? Do you think that now, with all the questions around O'Malley not having never fought, quote unquote, again, quote unquote, air quotes with my fingers, having never fought anybody, do you think it's time that Dana starts moving him up in rank of fighter, or is Dana White going to continue to kind of like slow play his hand with Sean O'Malley?
Sean O'Malley is what the UFC needs, because when you think about the people that are typically watching UFC the most, like when I think about people that are going to rock, the people that used to rock like affliction tees and like all that stuff, like back in the day, like Sean O'Malley is 100% someone who speaks to them. You look at his social media, Sean O'Malley is a Twitter anime character, right? Mm-hmm. Like that, his social media posts, look at his IG and his captions, like this dude is a Twitter anime character, Twitter anime avatar person, like 100%. Like he's more so on the toxic side. O'Malley's 27. I think they have to start pushing him sooner rather than later and give him a real test. Look, he's fought so many fights at this point. He's 15-1. I think his loss is when he broke his foot, or he had some foot injury, essentially. I read the medical report.
That's exactly what it was, by the way.
So the report that I read, he has a 6-month likely suspension, the medical suspension, because they have fighters have to sit a certain amount of time after they get certain injuries. O'Malley's done for 6 months, right? So we're not seeing him until summer of 2022 at the earliest now. There is no shot you can let this man sit until June, July, August of next year and not give us a fight that is intriguing. So I think for him at bantamweight, you've got to give him a fighter that ultimately is going to make us care. That's going to be intriguing, but I think you have to give him a shot at going against the number one contender. I don't think you give him a title shot, but give him a number one contender fight to see if he can become a number one contender and then go and challenge for the belt at that point. He has too many fights underneath his belt at this point. And that division, by the way, is super interesting because when you look at that, Aljamain Sterling is the champion, where some people will argue that he's not. You have Peter Yan, who also is the interim champion, and obviously that fight's going to happen between him and Sterling, you imagine, soon. But like Sean O'Malley versus TJ Dillashaw versus Jose Aldo. Aldo, by the way, the fountain of youth, is finding ways to win. Corey Sandhagen, even. There are a lot of really good fights you could even have him. Even Dominic Cruz could be a really fun passing of the torch type thing for that division. They're in a good spot with O'Malley, but give him a good fight sooner rather than later.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Sean O'Malley would have to fight. Who's the top in that division?
Peter Yan technically is the interim. Aljamain Sterling is the champion right now.
Is the champion right now? Yeah, because he's one down.
But those two guys are going to fight. Yan and Sterling will fight at some point first half of 2022. So to me, it has to be Dillashaw, Aldo, Sandhagen, or I think Dominic Cruz would be the name recognition you have to give him.
All right, now out of all those people you just spoke about, if you walk up to the street, who do they know? If you go on the internet, who do they know?
It's either Dillashaw or Aldo, I think.
I would say Dillashaw is the first name. Aldo, I think Aldo's kind of fallen back, obviously.
But he looked great in his last fight.
He did. But I mean, I still think he's fallen back in terms of
that recognition.
Sure. See, you think about UFC in the terms of like a fight fan. I think about it as mainstream. Who is Dana going to find that can go out there?
Yeah.
O'Malley's that guy. O'Malley's the heel that he needs to go against a guy like Dillashaw or go against Jan or those kind of guys. O'Malley is, I'm not going to compare him to Connor, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Like social media wise, he's that guy that people point out and go, God, I hate that guy. I want to see that guy get punched in the mouth. That's what I really want to see. I want to see O'Malley step into the ring and get punched in the mouth. And O'Malley goes in and gives highlight fights. O'Malley doesn't give boring fights.
You know who O'Malley is?
Who is he?
O'Malley is this generation's Carlos Condit, I think.
I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that.
And I think that's going to be fine. I don't think O'Malley will be a long-time champion. I think he has a chance to potentially be a champion. But I think similar to Carlos Condit, he's a dude that you go out and you watch and you say, this dude is going to scrap. He's going to give me a really good fight. And there's going to be some expletives thrown around nonstop within that. And I'm okay with that. So, yeah, I think that's who he is.
I think his mouth gets him into the spotlight. I think his highlight style gets him into the spotlight. I also think his highlight style is what's going to get him out of the spotlight because the way he fights, he's going to get cold cocked one time. Yeah. And again, in his division, it's way less probable that he's going to get one shot knocked out. He's going to take a flash knockout. Okay. He's going to take somebody's going to hit him in the chin with a back heel. Someone's going to hit him with a roundhouse or something where he gets hit and he goes down. And everything he's talking is going to go right out the window. You know why I know that? Because that's what happens to every fighter that talks like he does. Every fighter takes a bad knockout and then loses that credibility and then turns into the unsung I'm coming back, and no one believes it.
America. I mean, yeah, and the question is then, does he become, this was the guy that was just talking trash to him not too long ago, does this become Cody Garbrandt, where Cody Garbrandt was a dominant left-handed hook dude that it was knocking people out, got knocked out with a flash KO and never really got it back? Or does he become someone else like a Jose Aldo, who Aldo had the most embarrassing loss in his career and of some of the top UFC losses we've seen, where he gets knocked out by Conor in 13 seconds or essentially whatever it was. And Aldo has made a way to fight back in his career. Obviously, there's been other fighters that have lost in various ways, but I'm intrigued. Regardless, when O'Malley fights, I love to watch them. They're fun.
I do kind of want to see him going against Vera one more time. I do. I know that's a little played, and I know that we do this whole, hey, the fighters in their 3 fight. I get it. I do. There's something inside of me that wants to see him fight Vera one more time.
I just feel like it's Cruz. I feel like Cruz is going to be the move because Cruz just fought on the same card as a prelim fighter. What is happening here? But I feel like we're going to see Cruz and him line up because of the timing that it makes, and it's a really nice passing of the torch and allows Cruz to go back into broadcasting where I think he's pretty good there.
If he gets a 6-month ban, which it looks like from all the news, looks like he probably will. I'm talking about O'Malley, and he fights in maybe July, maybe like I said, July, August, because that lines up. It would be he would be technically medically banned until June. I would have to say that he comes back. I don't know that that's a Cruz fight in July. Like you don't come off a medical suspension into top level like that. That's kind of why I want to see the Vera fight, because I think that could give a potential storyline for O'Malley. And if he wins that fight, he can be rid of Vera. You know what I mean? There's no more questions about Vera, because like guys like Ben Askren were talking about that Vera fight for a while after O'Malley got carted out of there, right? So I wouldn't mind seeing that happen and be like, hey, look, you know what? Let's get Vera out of sight, out of mind here. Finish him off, because I do believe that O'Malley would finish Vera quite cleanly in another fight, and then we start talking Cruz, Jan. The big fights. He's only 27. I mean, he's gonna be 28 in October of next year. So I still think he's got a lot of life to fight. And again, I think he is going to get pushed very quickly in the next probably year or two. So
yeah, you let him avenge Vera, then you tell him to do a call out at the end of the fight, calling out a top name, right? Because you imagine Sterling or Jan, one of them is going to be unified as the undisputed champion, and then let him essentially go from calling out people there. That makes sense.
Have him ringside behind Joe Rogan. And so that's the move. Put him right behind Joe Rogan and have him point him out right at Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, O'Malley is one of the best up-and-coming UFC fighters, especially in the bantamweight division. But his kicks aren't as good as somebody else that we know, are they?
No. So, story breaking news. Glass shattered. Josh Lambo came out today as we're recording this and stated that during preseason stretching at training camp, he was doing lunges. I want to correct everyone. I want everyone to know Josh Lambo is a kicker. Okay. His legs make him millions of dollars. And apparently Urban Meyer walked up to him and kicked him in the leg and said, "You better make your effing kicks." And Lambo said, "You can't hit me or touch me or strike me like that." And Meyer looked back at him and said, "I'm the effing head coach. I can do whatever I want." Now, again, this is preseason where we heard all kinds of stories about Urban Meyer treating them like college kids, right? I want you to know that there's no way this is the first time Urban Meyer struck an athlete. This is the first time that an adult man has stood up and stated that without pressure that Urban Meyer would get him kicked out of college football. I truly believe this is not the first time he's done this. And this is, we've already talked about this. Urban Meyer was already in a dumpster fire. He was looking to blame anyone he could after the last loss, including, I think he's thrown Trevor Lawrence under the bus a couple times, if we're being fair. Can you imagine being Trevor Lawrence there? This is it. Shad Khan came out after the last loss before this story broke and said, "We're looking into all avenues. We're going to do what's best for the Jacksonville Jaguars." I'm telling you, what's best for the Jacksonville Jaguars is to fire Urban Meyer right now. That story is it. Get an interim head coach, do whatever you want to do. This has got to be it for Urban Meyer, right?
Do you know what my crackpot theory is here?
He's trying to get himself kicked out.
I mean, I think he has been trying to get himself kicked out since week 8 is what it essentially feels like. But I genuinely think Shad Khan, who I have a picture with, he's a great mustache. I genuinely think he was
relative
waiting.
Of Tony Khan, right? AEW, right?
Oh, yeah. I genuinely think that Khan was waiting until the vast majority of the highest profile coaching jobs were filled before he went and fired Urban. Because look, there's no way that a dude who is that successful in life, who is trying his best to get this Jacksonville Jaguars team to be a perennial playoff team, which, let's not forget, a couple of years ago, they were a fearsome defense, one of the best defenses in the league, and had some potential, and they had Blake Bortles at quarterback. So imagine they had Lawrence at quarterback back then. But look, I think this team can be fine, but you have to get Urban up out of there. So I really think Khan has just been waiting for all the major jobs to be filled. To my knowledge, USC obviously is gone. Oklahoma's gone. Notre Dame, which is what Urban Meyer more than likely wanted the most, is gone. USC is gone. All the major programs have been filled at this point. So I imagine in the next 2 weeks, Urban will be fired and will be no longer the coach there. And I think the Jaguars will win a game or two immediately after that, because there's no shot that these players are feeling any inkling. Every report we're getting out is that the Jaguar players are beside themselves. They hate it there. They want him gone. And I just think the only way that Khan has, I just can't think of the only logical thing that he's been thinking is I need to keep this guy here so that I can screw him over like he's screwing me over right now.
When I think all of this started, obviously preseason. We already know that, right?
Yeah.
I truly think that this started when he traded Gardner Minshew, because apparently he was the driving force behind the Gardner Minshew trade.
Okay.
And can I just tell you right now, Gardner Minshew was ostracized, and I'm going to be the first one to say that I was wrong. Gardner Minshew was traded for a bucket of balls, essentially, to a team that had a backup quarterback in Joe Flacco, who has now since moved on to the Jets. And he's kind of making the Eagles look like geniuses. And I actually think that I would rather want Gardner Minshew on my team right now than 70% of the first rounders of this past year. Yeah. Can I just let me listen? I know this is going to sound crazy. Give me 1 second, because I looked this up the other day, and the Carolina Panthers, let's use them as an example, right?
Sure.
How much would they traded, a good amount for Sam Darnold on what? What do they trade him? What do they trade him for, right? On potential. correct?
Yes.
It said, hey, look, this guy has potential. And I thought it too. I said he was going to be the comeback player of the year, the most improved player, right? And no, you were right. And I fully say that. I want you to listen to these stats. Gardner Minshew, in his first year in Jacksonville, threw for 3,200 yards, 21 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Okay? And that is a QBR of 44.6. His second year in 2020, in 9 games, 8 starts, threw for 2,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on a very bad Jacksonville team. Okay? And you can say he was behind a lot. This year for the Eagles, he has thrown 253 yards on 22 of 27, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Gardner Minshew, the reason Gardner Minshew did not get a shot in Jacksonville and the reason he did not get a shot anywhere else is because he was drafted in the 6th round. Mm-hmm. Hold on, wait a second. I'm going to make sure this is right. I'm going to make sure he's right. I want to make sure that I have the actual, 6th round. Okay, there we go. 6th round, 178th overall. They brought Trevor Lawrence in. Urban Meyer had his guy. So be it. Gardner Minshew is now showing with the Philadelphia Eagles, who had Jalen Hurts already there, and they had committed to him, that he might be the future of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that this all started with a team that had bonded to Gardner Minshew. I think they believed in Gardner Minshew, and Urban Meyer came in and wanted to shake things up so much. He wanted to draft his quarterback. He wanted to have his team around him. He wanted his college atmosphere where he was the boss. He didn't want a guy that stepped in on him. He couldn't handle a guy stepping in on him. And Gardner Minshew was the sacrificial lamb in all this. And now that he's succeeding with Philadelphia a little bit, I think that makes Urban Meyer look even worse. And here is my prediction. My prediction is Gardner Minshew is a starting quarterback for the Eagles next year, and they're a playoff team. And it's not particularly close.
No, I think they trade Minshew. I think you have obviously Hurts and Minshew play different styles of football, right?
For sure.
Hurts has a running ability that few people in the league has, but I honestly think Jalen Hurts is a fantastic up-and-coming quarterback and will be fine for the Eagles.
I think, wait a second. Okay. We think, I need to cut you off there. I think Jalen Hurts is a fantastic fantasy quarterback. He is a top 5 fantasy quarterback. He is... Oh God, I'm going to say this. He is a less talented Taysom Hill.
No shot.
Dude, when Jalen Hurts is good, it's not because he's throwing the ball. It's because he's running with the ball. He has had some terrible games throwing the ball. Like, I'm not even talking about like rookie. I'm talking about bad games, period. This year, you ready for this? He's had games of 2 interceptions, 1, 3 interceptions was the last game. 3 interceptions against the Giants where they lost 7-13 before Gardner Minshew led their team back against the Giants and won 33-18. I'm telling you, and a lot. Listen to the rush yards. And again, I'm a fan of a team that uses 2 rushing quarterbacks. Believe me, I understand what rush yards are.
Your offensive coordinator is more of a problem than your quarterback. So
I fully understand that, but I want you to understand. Listen to this. 18 rushes for 69 yards and 3 touchdowns. The same game, he threw 13 of 24 for 147 and sacked 3 times. Okay, 13 carries for 55 yards. That was a 72.7% rate, by the way, or QB rate, by the way. Like he's just not 16 of 23 for 178, 2 touchdowns and interception, 11 of 17 for 162. Like, these are not the numbers you want out of your quarterback, and they're not designed runs. Like, they're trying, he's scrambling, and you can tell, but whatever you want about the offensive line there. Jalen Hurts, I don't know how this turned into a Jalen Hurts conversation, but hey, here we are. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to get usurped by Gardner Minshew, especially if Minshew gets a couple more starts. They've got 3 more games left.
Here's where I sort of net out on it. I think if I'm taking the ceiling of Jalen Hurts versus the ceiling of Minshew, I'm taking the ceiling of Hurts. And I think if you have Minshew, right, hear me out on this. If you have Minshew and you're seeing, there's reports the Panthers are already trying to like call to figure out, like, can they trade for Minshew in the offseason or figure out something.
I'm sure they are now.
But if If you can trade Minshew and get a second rounder or convince some idiotic team to give you a first rounder for Minshew, you 100% do it. And here's my other problem. The Eagles are not built to win now, right? And running
but they're
back,
close to the playoffs. Dude, if they win against Washington this weekend, they're in the playoffs right now.
But getting to the playoffs doesn't matter if you aren't going to win. Getting to the playoffs is a fan's like consolation prize, right? Like, oh, we made it to the playoffs, but you didn't win anything. That doesn't ultimately matter. I think if an NFL organization is building their success off, we made the playoffs, like. If you're not building to win a championship team or have a championship team, it doesn't matter. Their receivers are Devonta Smith, Arcega-Whiteside, Quez Watkins, and Greg Ward, and Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor is terrible. Mind you, Reagor is terrible. Devonta Smith, rookie wide receiver. I throw that out of the argument there. Arcega-Whiteside, an okay guy. I don't want him ever any higher than third or fourth for me, honestly.
Dallas Goedert, who's sneaky good. That's why they got rid of Zach Ertz.
Sure. Got it. Well, because they needed the draft capital for
sure.
For him, but I still think Ertz will retire with the Eagles. But anyways, that team is just not built to win now. So I think you try to capitalize on what Minshew has done and you trade him. But ultimately, Urban Meyer has done nothing in the NFL, which is what our argument was. Urban Meyer has done nothing in the NFL that screams he is a smart or even remotely capable head coach. They have to fire that man.
I want you to understand right now. 261, 303, 261 against the Falcons, 303 against the Cowboys, 358 against the Chiefs, this is week 4 before the Chiefs understood what they were defensively. Since then, this is Hurts's passing lines. You ready for this? 182, 113, 223, 114, 155, 170, 138, 124.
I just told you his receivers year over year.
Hold on. Devonta Smith is a very good receiver. You tell me what you want. Devonta Smith is up in that conversation on the very outside looking in at offensive rookie of the year.
No, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying Devonta Smith is like I don't look at what a rookie wide receiver is, because your rookie wide receiver should never be your best receiver. There are some outside cases like a Justin Jefferson, for example, who is out there, but anytime your rookie wide receiver is your best receiver, your receiving core is not good. Unless you have Randy Moss or Justin Jefferson or somebody.
I'm with you.
I just think the Eagles aren't in a win now state. Jalen Hurts has shown progress year over year so far. I think you give him the benefit of the doubt. I think you trade Minshew because his draft capital is high. You're going to get more for Minshew coming off the season. You're going to get for Hurts right now trying to trade. So that's why I think you make the Minshew trade.
Jalen Hurts was drafted in the second round, 53rd overall. I'm going to say that you're going to make, by you saying this, you're making the same mistake that the Carolina Panthers made. The stats say it. The stats say that Gardner Minshew deserves a shot somewhere. That Gardner Minshew, and the eye test is there too. When Gardner Minshew was in Jacksonville, the eye test stood up. Like, he was a good quarterback. And again, I also did the same thing. I did the same thing before this season, that I was looking at potential. We do this Madden standpoint. We're always looking for who can grow in ratings. I get this. We never give those potential, stats. They're two sides. One has potential, Sam Darnold. One has stats to back it up, Gardner Minshew. Like, I know he was drafted in the 6th round. I fully understand it.
We're wrapping up a very bad transition of a segment, but I'll just say this is my final piece on this.
Right.
Gardner Minshew is Kirk Cousins, and I'm not building a franchise around Kirk Cousins.
Gardner Minshew is the player that either gets, here's the problem. Jalen Hurts gets a GM 2 to 3 years. Gardner Minshew gets a GM fired in 1 for taking the shot on him, or he gets the GM a 5-year deal for taking a shot and succeeding. That's the problem. The problem is that Gardner Minshew, because he was a 6th round draft pick, if a GM goes to an owner and goes, this is my guy, and Gardner Minshew decides to screw the pooch and completely just blows up, unfortunately, that the GM gets fired that year. If you go and get Jalen Hurts, it's like Sam Darnold. I went and got Sam Darnold's my guy. Let's bring him in, see what happens. That GM might not get sacrificed to the football gods because of, hey, he had potential. Gardner Minshew is one of those guys. Hey, this is my guy. He's a 6th round pick though. Who cares? You know who else was a 6th round pick?
Jesus Christ, you did not just make this comparison. You just took.
Hold on, let me just double check here, chat. I want to make sure I have the right one.
I just said
drafted by the New England Patriots, 199th overall in the 2000 NFL draft.
The worst
Mr. Thomas. Actually, it's not Thomas. It's just Tom. Tom Brady. By the way, multiple time MVP. Gardner Minshew drafted 22 or 21 spots higher.
I just want to put out there, Mills, that I literally told you Gardner Minshew is Kirk Cousins, and then you just spent 3 minutes explaining to me why Gardner Minshew is Kirk Cousins. You spent the exact same time giving me all the same stats.
The difference is Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. He's not going to be a quarterback that gets you in the playoffs. What?
Where are you picking for the college football playoff? This was supposed to be an Urban Meyer segment, and you've turned it into Gardner Minshew love fest, and now he's the next Tom Brady.
I have a love for Gardner Minshew now. I'm gonna pick him up in my Bears franchise. It's Alabama. Alabama's gonna steamroll. Going to steamroll Cincinnati. Sorry, Cincinnati fans. That team does not deserve to be in the top four. Well, I take it back. They deserve to be in the top four because everybody else has to bed. And then I would say Georgia steamroll. Honestly, I love Michigan, man. I love Hutchinson. I think Michigan's got a very good program. Michigan is going to get like legitimately rolled over by Georgia. And that's not SEC bias or anything. Georgia is that good. I don't think Michigan's ready for what Georgia brings to the table. They looked really good against Ohio State. Their defense is top notch. That Georgia team is on a different level. And that shows me even more about how good Alabama is, considering Alabama's game plan to go stop them. And we get a rematch of Alabama, Georgia in the title game.
Yeah, we are in the same wavelength there. But I'm probably going against what you're choosing. I'm choosing Georgia to beat Alabama in the national title rematch by a 3-point game.
Yeah, Georgia-Alabama is the game everybody wants to see.
Yep.
Unless you live in Ohio or Michigan, like unless you're up there near those cold lakes, like with all that, the cold breeze gets in your ears. You don't understand things. It bewilders you.
Like Gardner Minshew.
The game that everybody wants to see is Alabama-Georgia. That's the best possible football game as the championship. Yeah, Cinderella Cincinnati would be fine, I guess, but I really don't think Cincinnati level is on the level of any of these people. People try to convince me that Cincinnati, they beat Notre Dame. Okay, Notre Dame's ranked 5th in the country, and who did Notre Dame beat?
Literally no one. Yeah.
So I just think Cincinnati is. I'm glad to see a non-Power 5 team get there. But there's a reason Cincinnati's going to a Power 5 conference in a year or two. So let's be fair.
Yeah, I just don't see any way Cincinnati even holds a candle to what Alabama has. I think by halftime, it's a laugher. And we're watching, whoever is going to play next year for Alabama, for some of their seniors that are leaving, getting a little bit of extra time to shine.
And then Bryce Young, absolutely deserving of the Heisman Award, by the way. I think he was pegged going in. The game he had against Georgia did nothing but solidify it for him.
Yeah, I just think we should also, I just want to shout out the fact that Kenneth Walker was not up there as a Heisman candidate, to me was incredibly wrongdoing. Yes, I know Michigan State sort of didn't have the greatest finish at the end of the season, but Kenneth Walker absolutely dominated, had fantastic yards, and had seasons comparable to Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram, who both took home Heismans or were in the Heisman voting. So he should have been in that. I'm not saying he should have won, but he should have absolutely been in that final grouping.
I also think we're in a world where running backs are viewed as lesser citizens in the NFL, and in college football. I think the institution of the multiple back system has now made it so that, hey, look, it's great that you have a running back, but that running back's going to fail you at some point. You better get somebody who can throw you for 300 yards. And I think that's why we started seeing even more so. I was surprised Hutchinson was up there, to be fair with you. So he deserved to be, but I was surprised due to media.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with Hutchinson because they've been building stories. I mean, heck, before College Game Day, before the Ohio State Michigan game, they put together like a cinematic documentary on Hutchinson and why he's going to cure, every disease. So I'm not surprised they gave him that extra love, but I think Michigan's defensive line, the two ends are unreal. So regardless, I want to know what everyone's college football predictions are going to be. I really think it's going to be, to Mills's point, where we agreed on Alabama versus Georgia in the rematch. And then I can see Georgia in a 3-point game. Do you have a prediction on the final?
If it's Alabama and Georgia, I think Alabama beats them. I don't think it's as widespread as the SEC championship game. I think it's a 1-score game, and I think it comes in probably at like a 5-point spread.
Yeah. Yeah, totally makes sense. Well, look, Mills, a fantastic episode. This is our last episode of 2021. Our next episode will be on January 5th. It'll be a live show. You can still get the podcast in the audio form the next day on the 6th. Yep. And it should be a great time. I think the format we have will be great. You'll see more about it very soon, but it's a unique one. So my name is GoodGameBro. That is Miles. That is Mills over there with the Gardner Minshew love fest that he had. And
I'm getting a jersey. I'm gonna get a jersey. Let's if he's with the Eagles next year, I'm gonna make the Eagles my NFC team. I'm getting a Minshew jersey.
I look forward to that going to your local Goodwill very, very soon. Anyways, be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Ciao.